Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex on the G. Flex.
Oh, yes. Friends and family, mothers, brothers, sisters, dogs, cats, anybody listening to the Fantasy Flex podcast. I am Matt on the other side of the glass, on the other side of the landmass, up in the mountains. Shane, what's going on, brother?
Not too much, man. How you doing this morning?
Oh, it is. Yeah. So let me just speak real quick on this. It is the morning time right now. Nobody else knows that, but this is the first podcast I've ever done in the morning. So I told you I had to wake up. I got to get up early. We got a dynasty a dynasty startup draft going, as well as the finishing of our dynasty rookie draft. That just makes us nuts right now. I mean, a lot of people out there, not even drafting right now. You know, they're sitting on the couch, they're reading pre-camp news. The pre-camp news is allowing them to get into dynasty leagues, making trades for pre-camp hype news one day for 2 third rounds. We won't get into that right now, but it's the morning. Okay. I said, I got to get my coffee. Got my coffee. I barely ate it because I didn't want to eat it on an empty stomach. And now I'm going to drink it down, and we are going to get into a dynasty rookie draft with our friends. You know, I would call these degenerates friends at this point. It's a very nice league. I think, how do you feel about finding the right league? I think that's maybe where we should start. You know, I don't think we should be playing in a league where you got one person that may never even set their lineups. They might go weeks without even looking at it. I mean, how important is it to get in the right league?
Well, let me put it this way. It's awesome to win, but if you are not actually playing with the right people, it's an absolute, there's no point. What's the point of even playing? So I would say that's the most important part. I mean, we all have our home leagues. I've got a pretty sweet little home league with 10 people. We do it's a redraft every year, and it's an auction league, which for those of you who have not done an auction league, like hands down the most fun. Absolutely. But at the same time, I mean, it's also kind of fun to go and play against random people. I mean, we talked about it 2 weeks ago, I guess, at this point, but we're in a listener league together. And now we're officially in 3 leagues together as of last night, which we are drafting for the Flex Network Dynasty League right now, which is pretty cockamamie.
It's really cockamamie. And what's even more cockamamie is we're in 3 3 leagues together now. I just met you a couple years ago, and you have become one of these guys that I really love, just shooting the shit about fantasy through our GroupMe app. By the way, GroupMe is a plug right there. They sponsor us. Just
more so they sponsor our degenerate conversations.
Yeah. So GroupMe is a really fun app found by our friend Charlie in San Antonio. He's the one that I think that got us through, or I forget, but somebody got us through GroupMe. It's where you can get all your fantasy friends together in one place and talk shit to each other, or whatever you want to do. My favorite part is we got this one guy. He's crazy Eagles fan, 35. Look him up on Twitter. He's nuts, but he always has this one. Is it a GIF or is it a GIF? I call it a GIF, but some people
call it a GIF. I'm a GIF guy.
Okay, I think I like GIF. I mean, I might go with the GIF. Okay, so GIF of this girl, and she's like, and she's got her big old boobies hanging out, and it's kind of crazy because that's like his mark. Every freaking week, he's got to throw one of these out there, and plug for GroupMe.
Yeah.
It's a fun place to get together and message your friends about trades. But as I said, man, we're in 3 dynasty leagues. Now we're in a podcast together, and I barely even like you. And it's no, I'm just joking.
Even that's a reach. Barely. Come on now. You're sticking me beating you.
Yeah, that's funny. No, the reason why I think we became really close is or closer than the others is we played each other in the championship or in two, well, essentially either the final, it was the finals one year and then it was to go to the finals the next year. So
right.
We clearly are one of the better teams in that league. No, I'm just
well, you know what though? That's redraft. Well, it's a keeper league, but that's a little bit different. We got fresh slate every year. So far, you and I aren't doing too well in that dynasty league. I was you were in the 1 hole, and I was in the 4 hole for for the rookie draft, which is not a good result from last year.
Yeah, and that's what we're going to get into is a little bit of a recap of our Dynasty startup. I think there's a lot of people out there that want to get into Dynasty but just don't really know. And I will tell you, I mean, there's not a lot of free content out there. There really isn't. You can listen to podcasts, which are great, but it's not like you can pull up just the run-of-the-mill Dynasty rankings. I mean, it feels like anybody that's worth anything in the fantasy community, it's paid. If you want their dynasty rankings or their dynasty, some of their content, you got to pay for it, which is great. I support them, but the average listener, the average person probably doesn't or can't find the means to or whatever. So, and we're going to post the results to our Twitter once it's completely finalized in our Facebook page and whatnot. So you guys can go out there and just see, what are other dynasty players doing and how are their drafts going. And I think that's a really cool tool. I don't know a lot of people doing that. So.
Well, you know what? I mean, to your point, Dynasty is sometimes hard to get into, and because it can be intimidating, right? I mean, you're doing a startup draft, and like we haven't gotten to it yet, but where's Todd Gurley going to go, right? It's a very big decision where you're going to draft that top player. Whereas in a redraft, okay, you mess up your pick, it sucks for one season, but then it's a clean slate every year. I think that with Dynasty leagues, though, you have to check the internet for these league forums. I mean, there's forums out there everywhere. I mean, you can go into Reddit forums. I know that you and I are listeners to the Podfather, and I go into his forum quite regularly. And there's other dynasty forums that you can get into, and I think that is where you're really going to make your hay. So I think the reason it's intimidating is because you have to go out and you have to do the work. You have to put the work in because it's not a short-term play; it's a long-term play. But at the same time, I would argue that it's far more rewarding to win in Dynasty than it is to win in a redraft league, simply because you have to invest that time. It's like anything else in life, right? You invest your time and hopefully you get the payoff, and then you're just laughing, right? And the other thing about a Dynasty team is, I mean, we'll talk about your team in a little bit, but sometimes it's that short-term pain, but if you're willing to pretty much mortgage a farm to get these rookie draft picks, then you can really set yourself up for long-term success. And it's that short-term sacrifice to go in and lock in some of these top players, and you can have a monster team for 3 to 5 years if you're a good drafter.
Yeah, I would say that I definitely so last year, so to get in this league a little bit, last year was our startup, and then we went through the year, and now we have switched to Sleeper. They also sponsor us.
Wink, wink.
And since we switched to Sleeper, I think the league has been a little bit better, a little bit more active, but also I feel like I've been a little bit more active in my craziness, which is fun. I've been trading since like 2 months ago, it seems like, or even after the draft. And I think this is a really good draft class. A lot of people are calling it a weak draft class, but I think it's got some studs. And so for me, I really kind of in my startup, I feel like I tanked it a little bit. I tanked it on purpose.
Don't say that out loud. because I'm the commissioner. You can't say that out loud.
I didn't take it on purpose, like to just fuck everything, but like I went into the draft knowing I wanted, 2 or 3 guys, and I was going to get those guys, and I was going to reach for those guys. One of those guys being Baker Mayfield, which I'm stupid high on. I mean, I'm going to enjoy owning that dude for the rest of forever. And I got him for, I think, an 8th rounder in the startup last year, which was a little high.
Flex.
In a super
flex league, which
right?
Is worth, yeah.
Yeah, and again, from our previous pods, there's no other way to play than a super flex, and no other way to play than a tight end premium. I feel. I mean, it's fun to do redrafts and it's fun to do other leagues, but I think for the absolute most fun, super flex tight end premium right now is the ish. So I went for Saquon Barkley and Baker Mayfield. Those were kind of my guys last year.
Well, I mean, when you get the 1 overall pick, I think you can go after Saquon. It's
right, which I did. But then
Yeah.
again, and then getting to this offseason real quick, I would say I mortgaged the farm or whatever. I traded Saquon. So, okay, let's get into this real quick. I had a lot of flack from the last podcast saying, what the fuck were you doing? You traded Saquon directly for Travis Kelce in a tight end premium. And no, that's not exact. We kind of said it like that because we just assumed that, people were understanding, but no. So to lay it out, I traded Saquon Barkley for Dalvin Cook, Travis Kelce, and first round pick this year in a rookie draft, and first round pick next year in a rookie draft. So suck it. I feel like I got the best of that deal for one guy. And so it put me a little bit behind the curve. And then I went out and I got Damian Williams as my second RB. And then basically I got Kelce. I went out and I got Hunter Henry last year. That was my other guy. So I had Cook, Williams, Hunter Henry, and Travis Kelce, Baker Mayfield, and basically no receivers at all. I mean, I have Julian Edelman as my number 1. And so obviously I was in a little bit of a hurt this year, and that was to kind of set up, a lot of people are going to give me flack about my picks this year. But what should we do? Should we go right into it, or do you want to kind of lay out what you did last year and why we're at the top of I kind of told you why I'm at the top of this draft this year, but why were you pick 4 this year?
Look, I got no excuses. My team just didn't perform the way it was supposed to perform. So, I made some off-season moves, and I drafted Rodgers early in our startup last year. And so I drafted him, or I traded him this year to get a little bit of depth, to get some rookie picks. I ended up getting DJ Moore, who I like. I got Mitch Trubisky back. But, I want to go, actually, I think that what you were saying is a good segue into the draft here, because it kind of does set the tone. And Matt's rolling up his blanket. My goodness.
It's fucking cold, dude. I don't live in fucking Texas or some shit. It's 8:23 in the morning here. It's freezing.
You're a gentle butterfly. I get it. It's fine. No, but I think this segues well into this draft because, you kind of glossed over the Damian Williams acquisition, but you got that by trading essentially the 101 for Kyler Murray, right? Along with other pieces within the trade, but those were the 2 major factors in the trade.
Let's again lay the trade out exactly. So it's not just, no, I did not trade 101 for Damian Williams. No, I did not. What I traded was 101, 112, and then a first round pick next year and Damian Williams for Kyler Murray, essentially. So I only had 1 running back on my roster, Dalvin Cook. That was it. So I went out, I got Damian Williams. I sacrificed Kyler Murray because I had Jimmy Garoppolo and Baker Mayfield. I just felt like, it's not that I couldn't enjoy having Kyler on my team, but I felt I'll add depth with Damian Williams, who's in Casey's star-studded offense, did well last year. I'm happy to own him for the next, couple years, and he's got feature back size and speed, and maybe he just didn't get a fair opportunity, and I'm ready to get a couple years from him and enjoy that as well as the picks. And we'll get into what I did with that 112 pick in the future. So sorry, continue.
No, I think that's perfect because I think this is a good going back to your original point where you said you tanked. You didn't tank, but essentially you traded value today to get value tomorrow, right? I mean, a lot of the times we talk about dynasty or just players in general, and you have to trade them with a certain value, similar to you would trade stock. So then we talk about, the value of something today versus the value of something tomorrow. And in both cases, you had premium players, you had Saquon, and essentially you had Kyler at the 101,
Right.
and you took those players and you traded them for value. I don't think you lost out on that value. And it, not to get off topic here, but it kind of does go to that age-old question of, when you're drafting, would you rather be getting the single best player in a draft, or would you rather get, say, two solid pieces to get that one solid player? It all depends on your team. And you looked at your team at the 101 and you realize, I'm not in a position to win this year. And to be honest, I don't know if you're in a position to win this 2019 season either, simply because you've got a lot of young receivers on your team following the draft, and those guys take time to develop. But you look at your team and now you've got a stack. Let's be honest. Essentially, this was your rookie draft, and the rest of us kind of just showed up once in a while. I think you had about 10 or 12 picks in this draft, which is just insane for a rookie draft. In a 5-round rookie draft, we start with 5 picks. You had, I think it was about 10 to 12 picks in this draft. You literally drafted an entire starting lineup of rookie players.
And I felt like I hit on every single pick, honestly.
Well, let's go back and let's talk about that, because I wouldn't say you whiffed on any picks, but let's go talk about round 1. Okay, so the 101, Kyler Murray went. Okay, so then you had the 102 and the 103, in which
and the 112 to start with. Let's just say that. So I had 102, 103, and 1.12, so 112, and I had 2.1. Okay, so
yeah.
In the first freaking 11 guys, I've got about 4. I got 4 of them. So
you got 4 of them. Okay, but let's talk about this for a second. Okay, so 101 Kyler, he goes off. Okay, so again, it's important to note that this is the super flex. So then you got the 2 and the 3. You went with receiver. You went N'Keal Harry, who I love, obviously, as a Patriots
but I went Paris, or I went N'Keal 3.
Okay, but that's semantics. But you got Paris and you got N'Keal. Okay, so then I went at 4, and I had the tough choice between Dwayne Haskins as a quarterback, or do I go and I get a guy like either Josh Jacobs or Miles Sanders? Those were really my three options at that point. I went ahead and I got Josh Jacobs. 105 went off, and
so you real quick, can you tell me why you would go Josh Jacobs over, and the very next pick was David Montgomery, and then the pick after that was Miles Sanders? So there's a very strong consensus that after 1, 2, 3, or even not even after 1, 2, 3, after Kyler Murray, the string of the 3 running backs are going to go in the next 5 picks, in any order. And so why did you choose Josh Jacobs over Montgomery and Miles Sanders?
Look, in my book, when you're going this early, and let me be frank, I'm not a John Gruden guy. I'm not an Oakland guy whatsoever, but I drafted for opportunity. And I know there's some very respected analysts that have Miles Sanders at 1, and from a talent perspective, yeah, I would agree that he's absolutely number 1. But I have been burned way too many times by the Philadelphia offense. And as much as we think that Miles Sanders has the ability to be an every down back, I do not trust the Philadelphia offense to simply just give him the ball on all 3 downs. So really, for me, that's what pushed me to the Josh Jacobs.
Well, you didn't even say anything about Montgomery. So in that consensus, you're a little bit apprehensive on Montgomery. You seem to be really apprehensive at Miles Sanders. So to me, that's David Montgomery.
No. Okay, to me, David Montgomery is a clear number 3 out of these 3 guys. I would have chosen Sanders. It was between Sanders and Jacobs for me. David Montgomery, he's obviously a talent. He's in a great Chicago offense, but they do have Tariq Cohen, and they do have Mike Davis, and I'm not entirely convinced that he's going to be a top running back in the league, at least in year 1. Could he be? Absolutely. But there is a lot of young talent. They've got Allen Robinson. They've got our boy, Miller Time. So, Anthony, they have a lot of talent on that team, and I'm not convinced that David Montgomery again is going to be an every down back. Whereas, I mean, you look at the Oakland offense, and there's Jacobs, there's Brown, and I mean, really, who else is there on that team? So they're going to go and they're going to give Jacobs the ball, and I think that he will be an every down back. I mean, don't give me this crap that there's going to be other third down guy. What is it, like Washington that's on the team? I don't buy it.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, the only thing in my eyes that David Montgomery has is feature back size. Player Profiler has him most comparable to Carlos Hyde, which is a big stink. Okay, he's 5'10". He's got 222 pounds. I mean, he's a big guy for how small he is, and he's definitely a great running back. There's a lot of good tape on this guy, but his 40-yard dash is 4.63. I mean, just like Josh Jacobs, or the problem with Josh Jacobs is he doesn't have straight line speed. He doesn't have that quick acceleration to get away from that defensive back that's going to chase him down long term. So maybe he's not going to break away for these 40-yard runs unless the hole is just completely wide open. And so, yeah, I mean, when you think about it, Josh Jacobs and David Montgomery both are kind of the third running back in this three to me. The only thing that pushes Josh Jacobs ahead of Montgomery is, like you said, the clear opportunity share of what that offense wants to do. On top of that, it's draft capital. First round pick is going to be for Josh Jacobs, which means that Gruden is going to feed him the ball. We know what Gruden is. He's a player's coach. He goes after his guys, and he will use his guys to the absolute maximum and to a fault, and that's okay, Gruden, great. But for you, that was enough to push over Miles Sanders.
Absolutely. And then going back to the Dwayne Haskins part of it, I mean, simply value in a Superflex league, Dwayne Haskins could have the most long-term value when we're looking 10 years out. I mean, he could conceivably still be in the league, whereas Josh Jacobs in 10 years will not be in the league. Frankly, I don't think any of these running backs will be. But and I mean, it comes back to talent versus opportunity, and I chose opportunity in this case. And I mean, let's just go back to the fact that my number one running back is Devonta Freeman right now, and that there's a whole bunch of question marks. I think he's going to be fantastic this year, but long term in Dynasty, that's absolutely risky. But
I honestly felt for you. Sorry. Now look, you're at 1.04. Okay. And we're getting into this a little bit. So please strap your bootstraps. Okay. Strap your freaking rocket launcher pads. We're getting off here. Okay. You're at 1.04. Try to follow us out there. Your quarterbacks, like you said, you traded away Aaron Rodgers and you got back Mitch Trubisky. But your quarterbacks are Trubisky, Cam Newton, and you drafted Jacoby Brissett. How in the world do you not go Dwayne Haskins there?
Listen, I think that if I really need to go after it, I bet you I could probably trade a Josh Jacobs for a meddling quarterback if I really needed to get a guy like that. So from my perspective, from my team anatomy, I needed a number 2 running back. I didn't need a Dwayne Haskins. And it goes back to the fact that, yes, long term, he may have had more immediate value, but he's going to be sitting on my bench probably for most of the season other than bye weeks. But again, it's a super flex. So worst case scenario, I can plug a guy in, and it's not ideal, but I can plug a guy into that super flex spot who isn't a quarterback. So that's ultimately what pushed me towards Josh Jacobs. But I think it was not an easy decision. I'd been toiling over it probably, since the draft. So for about 3 months, I've been toiling over which decision I was going to make. But when Josh Jacobs was sitting there at 4, I felt like I had to pull the trigger.
So I'll tell you what I am toiling over. Okay.
1.01
is Kyler Murray. I take Paris Campbell and N'Keal Harry 2 and 3. You take Josh Jacobs at 4. Okay. Pre-draft, I knew I was taking Paris and N'Keal. I had told you that. I had told the guy that I traded the number 101 for that it wasn't Murray who I was going after. So understand, I mean, this is who you're going to be getting. Then here comes our friend, the BVIC. Okay. He is going to be coming on this cast too, as well as our friend Weird Al Seslowski. He's coming on too, so we'll get these guys in here. But a trade came on my desk here. Now, it wasn't official; it was just a word of mouth trade. But it was Juju Smith-Schuster for 1.02 and 1.03, and I said no, and I'm a little bit concerned that I did that because obviously Juju's proven almost. He's gonna be
Almost.
great. Well, I mean, he's almost, meaning he's still young. Ben
Yes.
Roethlisberger is an old QB. Outside of Ben Roethlisberger, can the guy even get him the ball? Can the new guy even not only get him the ball, but now we're fighting against double coverage on Juju almost every play. I'm sure he's going to be a safety over the top, whatever. Juju's going to have to win, and so I looked at all the negativity on it. And, again, you can always talk yourself out of trades, but you can't always get the best player in the trade. I feel like dynasty trades are a little bit lopsided sometimes when you're trading veterans for potential, rookie draft picks, because you just never know what that rookie pick is or is going to be, and so sometimes I chase that. I chase the fact that Paris Campbell could be the next T.Y. Hilton, and I chase the fact that N'Keal Harry could be the next Dez Bryant, and together on my team that only had Jules Edelman, I needed those guys. And so, but did I really? Could I have just taken Juju and ran and said, I'm good, And so I will be toiling over that for a long time, because in Dynasty, especially right now, who's trading Juju Smith-Schuster? I mean, so when are you ever going to get that opportunity again? So it kind of makes my skin crawl a little bit. So
It's
what do you
tough.
think?
It's tough.
Should I have taken it? Should I have tried to take it? What do you think?
Okay, well, we gotta give it a little shout out to our boy Al and the geek who also plays in our league, because they've got another little podcast called the DFS Army, and they actually talk about the biases that we inherently have for players on our team. It's harder for us to trade guys away. I'm not going to get into that. I'm not going to steal their thunder, but guys, check it out. It's on Apple Podcasts. But if it was me, I would have snap accepted Juju for those two picks, and I'm going to tell you why.
No.
I would have snapped on that. Let me tell you why. Okay, so let's talk about the startup. We're not going to get into it because we're going to get into it on another. But you just chose Juju in round one of our startup. I don't think that Harry and Paris Campbell would have been anywhere near the 109 in a startup. And we talk about, okay, yes, Ben is aging, but do you think that my boy Brady is a spring chicken? What, 2 years left? Ben's probably 2 years left. So apples to apples, quarterback, let's call it a wash. Okay. Talent wise, we always talk about, wow, these guys are amazing. But I was chatting with one of our guys in our league, and then there's guys like Josh Doxson, who he was going to be an amazing player. John Ross, supposed to be an amazing player. And these guys come out and they just don't perform in the NFL. And I think that both Paris Campbell and N'Keal Harry are going to have very successful careers, but we know Juju. We know what he's done. And there wasn't every game that AB played, and Juju performed well. So for me, I would have locked that in. But I think too that we take another step back and just talking about the anatomy of your draft. And you went two wide receivers. Then at the 4, it was Josh Jacobs. At the 5, it was David Montgomery. And then you made a trade to get that 6th pick. So you traded.
Reporting the trade. Shane.
Here we go. Okay, so this is what we had. So you traded away in the tight end premium, Greg Olsen, the 112 and your 2021 for the 2019 106 and the 2019 306. So then at that 306, you went and you took Miles Sanders. Okay, so you essentially paid a premium to get Miles Sanders. And then what I think you could have done, because obviously hindsight's 2020, right? You go and you look at what went at the 112. and AJ Brown went at the 112. So conceivably, if you didn't make a trade, you could have gone and kept your picks, and you could have taken AJ Brown at the 112. So again, taking a step back, if you really, really wanted to get N'Keal Harry, you take N'Keal Harry, because I think you ranked Harry over Paris, correct? Or am I mistaken on that?
So I definitely did, because I just felt like Paris may not get as much run this year, and so I
No.
100% went N'Keal Harry if in a vacuum, if I wasn't going to be able to get Paris. So the reason why I went Paris at 2 instead of N'Keal is because there was just better trade options for N'Keal, and if somebody really loved him and wanted to come up and get him, I might have been able to part with him,
Right.
just because of that Tom Brady correlation that you spoke about earlier.
Right. Okay, so let's go back though. Let's say you took N'Keal Harry at 2, because you would have outranked N'Keal Harry over Paris, and then at 3 you went and you pulled the trigger on Miles Sanders. Okay, so then you're sitting with the 112 pick, and AJ Brown falls to you. So then you could have had Miles Sanders, AJ Brown, and N'Keal Harry, and your 2021, or would you rather had Paris Campbell, N'Keal Harry, and Miles Sanders? So essentially, would you have rather had AJ Brown and your 2021, or would you have rather had Paris Campbell?
Let me tell you, okay? So this is great. This is fantastic radio for fucking nuts like us, and this
You
is
have to dissect this stuff, man. This is like, we're talking about a top 6 pick in a rookie's draft. These are valuable picks.
okay. So let
I want to
this
get
be
into your
known.
head.
Let this be known. The number 1 overall player in this draft for me this year was Miles Sanders. So going into the draft, I had 1.1 or 1.02, 1.03, and 1.12, and I knew that I wanted Miles Sanders. So if I picked him first, then here's the thing. I knew I wanted Miles Sanders, and I knew I wanted Paris Campbell. Those two, that's pretty much what I went after in my draft. Those two. I looked at the way the draft was going to fall. I had got a little bit of trade openness to the guy at 1.06. He had 1.05 and 1.06. So I figured the guy he really wants, he's going to go after at 5. Okay. And then he might be willing to trade out of 6 just to move down. I was the perfect candidate for that because he's not moving out of the first round. With everybody else, he'd be moving out of the first round. And so I was always his number 1 option if he really wanted to move the pick to go down to 12. So he's only dropping 6 picks. He's not out of the first round. So I knew that. But I knew that I would never get N'Keal Harry ever if I let him fall out of the top 3. And I really like N'Keal Harry, really, but I didn't want to risk losing him unless I was getting something for him.
Well, you knew that I was going to take him at 4 over Josh Jacobs.
Exactly. And maybe that's what it was so much, is that you were at 1.04, you're a Patriots fan, and you like N'Keal Harry too. And so I was like, well, there's no freaking way that, I'm going to get N'Keal Harry. But I had a little bit of insight that the guy 1.05 was a David Montgomery fan. And so I was like, okay, so I know he's going to go Montgomery. I had kind of an idea that you were thinking Haskins. You kind of juked me a little bit.
I played with your brain, my friend. I played you, baby.
He flinched, and I thought for sure you weren't going to go Josh Jacobs, but you went Josh Jacobs, which is great, fine, because it was going to play into my potential master plan anyway, because I just didn't think if you went Miles Sanders, you'd have fucked the whole entire thing up for me. Because I would have just been
it was tough. I mean, for me, Jacobs was going to be the guy if he was sitting there, but it was tough.
Here's what I do. I take Paris first, okay, at 1.02. I could have let him fall. See, that's the thing, is he probably would have been the guy available at 6, right? So maybe I could have let him fall. But here's the thing. Paris Campbell is hot right now, and as hot as he is, there are some people that might have traded up for him too. And I just didn't want to lose my opportunity. But I knew that Miles Sanders was going to be available. So I took the shot. I took the shot at going Paris first. I tried to maybe throw N'Keal Harry out there on trade because if I was going to lose somebody, it was going to be him, but only for value. I didn't get what I thought he was worth, so I took him. Now I'm a little bit nervous because I'm getting word that there's people looking to trade up to 5. And I'm like, oh fuck. Like what if because I know the guy at 5 wants Montgomery, but maybe he fucking juked me. Who knows? And so I'm literally shitting my pants thinking somebody's going to come up to 5 and grab Sanders. And then he's going to keep his 6 pick and go Montgomery. And then I'm out of the whole entire thing and I lose both my guys. And
I hate to say, buddy, you know what that is?
What?
You know what that is? That's drafting scared. You can't draft scared.
I didn't, though. I drafted with a master plan in my mind, thinking, you know what? The only way this is fucking absolute the most fun is if I'm sitting on the edge of my seat and my nuts are twirling and they're going up into my stomach. And it's like I'm on this roller coaster about to go down, and honestly, that's the only way to do it, man. It's fun. It's really fun to be that way. Everything went to plan. I grabbed Paris first, N'Keal first.
Hey, listen, that's cool. I'm cool. If that was your plan, I say that's cool. But if it was me, if it was my team, and it's not, if it was me and it was my team, I would have gotten Jacobs for the value, or even I would have taken Dwayne Haskins potentially. Even if you have that bench depth at wide receiver, or excuse me, at quarterback, I would have taken one of those guys simply because of trade value. I think you're going to get more in a trade if you're going to get a Josh Jacobs versus a Paris Campbell this year. Now, next year, who knows, right? I mean, I think Devin Funchess is just on a 1-year deal. So Paris could be the number 2. And frankly, who knows about T.Y.? He's a stud, but he's always suffered with injuries. Maybe T.Y. takes a step back. And he's getting old. What is he, 29, I think?
I don't know. He's old.
I don't have it in front of me. Yeah.
And
so there's absolutely that possibility.
The team drafted Paris Campbell to essentially replace T.Y. In their offense, T.Y. is the most important part to their offense. I mean, it's the only way that it works, I feel like. And so they cannot risk not having a T.Y. in their offense. And so they drafted Paris. And so for me, that's just great. But you're right, though. But
I'm just giving you a hard time.
My master plan worked.
If it was me, I would have rather had Jacobs, Harry, AJ Brown, and that 2021. That's just me.
Okay, you're right. Hindsight is 2020, but
hindsight's 2020 though. That's the thing.
We don't know that Brown would have been there.
No, but I mean, let's look at the 12 was Brown, the 13 was Debo. Let's see here. Where's the 14? The 14 ended up being Noah Fant, and then the 15 was Jaws, JJ Arcega-Whiteside. So for me, AJ Brown, Debo, and you took Debo, right? That was your pick.
Yeah, that was my pick. And honestly, and I will give you a little bit more insight. Okay. So at the guy that I traded with up to 6, he wanted AJ Brown. Okay. That was his thing. He wanted to take AJ Brown right there.
Yeah.
And I told him, I go, listen, AJ Brown's likely going to fall. You can take my extra picks and come back up for him, or you can kind of wait it out. And look what happened. He waited it out, and right at 12 was AJ Brown. So for him, that was a slam home run.
Drafting like a boss, baby. That was drafting like a boss.
Yeah, he did really good, and that's our friend Eak, and he's phenomenal. That was a great, he got out of there. He took my 1 this year, my 1 next year, and he was gonna draft AJ Brown anyway. And okay, so you asked me like what happened. So understand this though. 1.12 and my next year's first round pick both came from the trade that I got from Damian Williams.
Right.
I traded the guy with the 12th pick. Okay, so he won the league last year. And so when I gave up that next year,
we're coming for you, geek.
Yes, we are.
Cocky.
Yeah, we have to. Absolutely. I mean, that's, and so the pick that I traded of his, which was next year's first round, was likely going to be an 8 to 12 pick anyway. And so I just like, okay, it might be the 12th pick overall anyway, which doesn't have as much value next year, as just the idea of the 1. And so can I get this guy to just accept it if it's just the one next year? Doesn't matter the pick. And yes, it was the question. So he took my 1.112 this year, and it might be the 1.112 next year. Who knows? And so to me, I just
shame on
figured,
us if he gets to 12 next year. Shame on us.
yeah.
That's all I'm gonna say.
So that was fun. I enjoyed it. And to be honest, I came out of the first fucking round with essentially Damian Williams, or Paris Campbell, N'Keal Harry, and Miles Sanders for all of it for Kyler Murray. Okay. Come on. Now, who's the boss drafter? Okay. Like, that is value right there for one guy. That's value.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I would say you had a great draft, and I mean, we were joking at each other and in the text that like we listened to too much of the same stuff because we pretty much wanted all the same guys going through it.
Yeah, and you directly sniped me in the
Can we
third
talk?
round.
Can we talk about that for a sec?
No, let's get there because we're now to the end of the first round. So not only did I get those guys, but literally 6 picks later, I have 2.1. I was able to hold on to 2.1, and I went Deebo Samuel. And I think I hit a home run at 2.1, but I'm actually, so here's where we're going to get into the second round. I'm actually a little bit upset knowing the way my draft went. If, knowing at the rest of the picks, I would have had upside wide receivers. I chose to go Deebo for one reason only, outside that to me, he was equally comparable to the next guy on my list, but I have Jimmy Garoppolo. And last year I went for the stack with, Pierre Garçon, and it did not work very well. So I was a little nervous to go back to it, but Deebo is a different player, different all the way around, different guy. Plus he's got some returnability, even though they drafted Jalen Hurd. I feel like Deebo and Jimmy Garoppolo will clutch each other and they will get on track. And I need that because I took Jimmy Garoppolo out last year. Essentially he died for me last year, didn't give me any points. Same thing with Hunter Henry. And those are two of my guys that I drafted that just shit on me, which is why I got the number 1 overall pick. So I'm really doubling down post injury on Jimmy Garoppolo and Hunter Henry. And then I drafted Deebo to solidify that, quarterback to receiver. But I will give you this. You drafted the other guy that I wanted, which was, I think, 2 picks later. And I kind of regret it knowing the way my draft went because I much rather would have wanted a piece of that fast offense in Arizona with Andy Isabella.
Yeah. No, I took Isabella at the 204. Let's just go back to Deebo for a sec. I think that the general consensus with the San Francisco offense is that the ball is going to get spread around. So there might not necessarily be one de facto just alpha receiver in that offense, but I think that if anybody can step up and it's going to be Jimmy's guy, I think it's going to be Deebo. I don't think that Pettis has. I don't think he's got the ability to be that dog. I mean, I don't know if you guys watched the Senior Bowl or followed the Senior Bowl, but when Deebo was there, he stood out. He was the guy throughout the entire week of practice and then in the game, and he just bullied people in the end zone. And I think that he's going to quickly become Jimmy's guy. And in a PPR league, man, there's value to that. There's absolute value. So I think that Deebo is going to be a stud. One thing I would like to talk about, I mean, we talked about him on our first podcast, but McCole Hardman, he fell all the way to pick number 17 in the draft. And a
he
lot
fell
of people,
to the guy he fell to Weird Al, our friend, coming on the pod
did he?
soon.
Did he fall to Al? That makes me mad.
But he had to. I mean, he has Tyreek. So he shored that up.
Point, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and here's the mess up on your part is you had the pick right before him. You could have went right in his inbox and said, "Hey, listen, brother, Mecole's coming off right here. Unless you trade up 1 pick and give me your third, you would have probably still got Andy Isabella." And because he was scared, and so he locked it up. Not only is he scared, but his QB corps suck, and so he locked up the other sucky quarterback who we will not name on this podcast right now. But
let's read through Al's Al's QBs. So he's got Marcus Mariota, Drew Brees, Josh Rosen, and then he drafted Dwayne Haskins and then Daniel Jones in the second.
That's
So
that's why. So he went Haskins 7 overall, I think 7 or 8. I think it was 8
overall.
but he had to.
Yep.
He had to. I mean, Breeze was likely this is his last year. I mean,
well, let's just go back to value. I mean, man, Dwayne Haskins, who is pretty much the consensus, obviously clearly not the consensus, but the highly discussed 102 in a Superflex rookie league, fell to number 8. So I mean, I would say that Al got an absolute freaking steal.
I think that he was one of the darlings of this draft, honestly, because unfortunately we drafted like 2 days before this Tyreek Hill news that came out yesterday, that there was no case that's going to be heard against him. Yeah, and so there might still be a suspension, but I mean, it's not. I mean, this news now would have pushed Mecole to the 3rd round likely. But during his draft,
that's a good point, actually.
Yeah, during his draft, he went Dwayne Haskins to fill a need because, I mean, shoot, he has Drew Brees and Josh Rosen and Marcus Mariota. I mean, Mariota, this might be his last year too. Josh Rosen might not even be the starting QB in Miami, and Drew Brees is on his last year. I mean, he doesn't have a quarterback at all for the future, and no in this league.
I would say Drew Brees has got at least 3 good years left.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
We'll do a little side bet on that.
Either way, he's not. I mean, he's a right now quarterback. He's one that he should be selling. He should be selling Drew Brees. Okay, but don't take that.
The thing about selling is you gotta have a buyer, unless you want to sell him at a discount.
Right. Well, to get him for anything, if it's his last year, I mean, you might as well try to get something. But he did a really, really good job though. So he went Dwayne Haskins and then Mecole, and then he also was the one that got Jaws, JJ Arcega-Whiteside, and I'm very high on him. I love him. I mean, I feel like that was probably still a reach because
you think so.
Well,
he
just
went at 15.
Well,
that's about where he's going.
Andy Isabella is a little bit, I would say, is higher, way higher than Jaws. Mecole Hardman, knowing what it was, way higher than Jaws. The next wide receiver that went off the board was Hakeem Butler, and that's to a guy that lives in Arizona. And so realistically, the very next wide receiver that went off the board was mine, which was Miles Boykin in the start of the 3rd round. And so he could have either traded that pick and came back. He could have traded it to you and came back. And probably would have got him. But he's still a great pick. Still a great pick, still a great value. That has nothing to say about that. And then continuing on, he went with Dawson Knox, tight end for Buffalo, which could be a home run. And then Kelvin Harmon, which again could be a decent pickup. And then Malcolm Brown at the very end of the draft to solidify his backfield, because Todd Gurley, we know right now, might even start the season on the PUP list. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, can we talk about something for a second?
Of course.
Let's go back to that Kelvin Harmon pick at 4.8. So I was sitting there at the 4.4, and I was staring at Albert Wilson, who this was a rookie draft, but this is also included all free agents available. And Albert Wilson was available. And for me, it was between Kelvin Harmon in Washington for his boy Dwayne, or if I go Albert Wilson. What would you have done there?
Kelvin Harmon. I don't like vets. I don't want vets at all. I don't want them at all. Yeah, because
he could be the number 1 receiver, though. Whereas Kelvin Harmon, I mean, he could be, the 3rd? Granted, Kelvin Harmon could also be the 1.
Well, that's the thing, is Allen Robinson. If Allen Robinson goes down,
Harmon's on Washington.
Sorry, not Allen Robinson. My bad.
Just Doxson?
I was thinking Doxson. Yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that I mix those guys up, because you would think that Doxson and Allen Robinson are very 2 different players, right? But they're really not. Allen Robinson to me is a little bit of a, I would say you should sell right now, because he could be the worst reason to go out and get him. He's that whole offense might turn into what the freaking what
Don't say that. Don't say that for my Anthony Miller shares, please.
or your Trubisky shares. Get the fuck
Or
out
my
of here.
Trubisky shares.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, people
I'm
are
not. Look,
touting.
I'm not as down on Trubisky as you are. I don't think.
Okay, you don't have to be, but everybody is saying in the range of outcomes for Trubisky is Bortles. Okay. And if Bortles happens in that
Yeah.
offense, Allen Robinson is just an overpaid piece to that pie that is not going to help that team. And so Doxson is kind of the same thing. He's not overpaid, but he is essentially the same receiver for that team that if you buy him, you might not get anything. Now the cool upside to that is Haskins is better than Trubisky. Okay. And so for me, I would rather go out.
Whoa. Why are we
Come
saying that
on.
Haskins is better than Trubisky?
Oh my gosh. Come on. Come
All right,
on.
well, that might be side bet number 2. In 3 years, we got to do a 3-year play, right? Because it's not fair, but we'll talk. We'll
Okay,
figure that one out later.
we're going to be doing this podcast for a while, so we'll
Yep.
have to go back and see who we truther status on. But Haskins is my guy. I was thinking that there's if New York would have drafted Haskins, I think it would have been a lot different. He goes to Washington, and they get Terry McLaurin, who it's McLaurin or McLaurin.
I think it's McLaurin.
And so they go out and get his favorite target, essentially, in the Ohio State offense, who's going to be their slot receiver, to me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the guy that bails you out more often than not, a la Tom Brady and Jules. And so I feel like that kind of offense is going to be rolled out. So you got Doxson on the outside who hasn't been able to prove nothing. Paul Richardson who hasn't been able to do anything. And so Harmon to me may be able to get in that offense and do exactly what a N'Keal Harry could do. For the Patriots, bigger bodied wide receiver, not as completely straight line fast, but that's okay. They got McLaurin. They don't need that. What they need is a guy they might be able to throw it up in the end zone to that might come down with the ball. Harmon could catch everything coming his way. That's the thing. He may not be fast. He may not be very fast, but he's going to catch the ball when it comes his way accurately. And I feel like Haskins can do that. So there's no way I'm drafting Albert Wilson over Kelvin Harmon. Like, no way.
Oh, man. Give me the DGAF quarterbacks in Miami. Come on. Give me the DGAF quarterbacks.
I'm with you. I'm with you. But, you're not hearing so much come out of the Miami beat writers is that Albert Wilson is catching these passes from Ryan Fitzgerald in the freaking offseason. What you see...
No, he's injured. He's injured.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Okay, good point. Touche. All right.
Exactly. Albert Wilson may never do nothing on that team from here on out. And you got Devontae Parker having somewhat of a resurgence, at least in your offseason.
Don't buy into the Devontae Parker hype. Don't get trolled.
I'm not buying into it. You're buying into the injured version of that hype on that same team. So, anyway, that was how I felt about that.
This is a mid-4th round rookie draft pick. So at this point, people, you're kind of throwing darts and you're going after who you want. When I saw that Albert Wilson got dropped prior to the rookie draft, I had him penciled in right around that mid-4th round. For me, though, I was trying to get back into that middle 4th round with selling off some of my guys just to get those late draft picks, but I couldn't end up getting any biters. And actually, I ended up selling Josh Doxson for the 5.5, who I ended up taking Jacoby Brissett for. So I'm okay with that. And frankly, to your point before, I want nothing to do with Josh Doxson. He's just wasting a roster spot.
Okay, so then why wouldn't you have? Okay, so you have Doxson. Okay, why wouldn't you instead? Why wouldn't you have drafted Harmon and then traded 5.5? And the likelihood of Albert Wilson still being there at 5.5 would have been there. There was a shot.
Remember we talk about drafting scared? You know how we talk about drafting scared? I thought that you were going to try to get Albert Wilson.
No, dude, I made it very clear that I wanted David Moore, and
Yeah,
I
he ended up
didn't
going for
get him.
5-1, I think.
Yeah, he's worth it more than anybody on the team. I mean, his rookie season was better than most,
But
and
the third wide receiver in an offense that doesn't throw the ball.
okay, he's a second. He's a number 2 wide receiver, okay? Just
You don't
because they
listen.
drafted
DK is going to be the number 2. Don't even pretend that David Moore is going to outbeast DK Metcalf. Come on now. You're a Seahawks fan. You know better than that.
Hey, I have love for the guys that have been able to come into the league and prove in their rookie year he came out of nowhere. He made a play to get on the team, and then he made plays in the game and was one of Russell Wilson's best targets last year outside of Tyler Lockett and an injured Doug Baldwin. Disley is coming back. So, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more mouths to feed, but we'll see in year 2. We'll see in year 2. I still think he's a better pickup than Albert Wilson.
You're such a troll.
I'm sorry. All right. So,
Okay, I think
go
to be
through
fair though, Albert Wilson's about I want to say number 12 wide receiver on my depth chart. So
why
at
are we
that point,
talking about Albert Wilson? Can we get off of the Albert Wilson topic,
all right,
please?
all right, all right, fine,
What was
fine.
your most surprising pickup of the entire draft? Surprising, either draft pick or just surprise. What was a surprise to you?
Okay, so it wasn't a draft pick at all, and I got to pull this up. Okay, it wasn't a draft pick. It was actually a trade. And let me just say, I love everybody in our league. All of these guys, I mean, you're all my brothers, but we have to talk about this trade between two guys. This was a trade, and I'm not making this up. Okay, so when you're checking your earphones, this is a real trade. So we had the 4.03 2019, and then we had two 2020 third round draft picks. Okay, so let me just put this into context because we were looking at this in round 3. You can get guys like Christian Kirk from last year, like Kiki QT from last year. These are guys that you can take a stab at in the third round. And a 2020 draft pick has inherent value because there's no holding cost. You can make a trade and it's not going to take up one of your roster spots this year. So it's a lot of value for any sort of 2020 pick. So then we go and we look at, I'm just pulling this up here because I just had it in front of me. So we have the 4.03 and two 2020 thirds for, okay, you sitting down, Matt? Cordero Patterson, 2019 505 and the 2019 503.
Who is Cordell Patterson?
Who is I can't remember who he used to play for the Patriots. Where was he a receiver? Was he a running back? I'm not sure. But now he's about the third string running back of Chicago,
Or the
but
5th
he's
string wide receiver, whichever one.
or the fifth string wide receiver. Take your pick. Basically, bottom of the depth chart. And the thing is that apparently he's getting a lot of off-season hype from Coach Nagy. And to me, like when we saw this, and I'm the commissioner of this league, so I had to process this trade. And I'm like, what the hell is going on in this world? Like, did I miss something? Did Tariq Cohen tear an ACL or something like that? Like, I didn't get it. Like, we know that last year when the Patriots really needed to do it, they got Cordero Patterson involved, and he was successful. But I can't. I'm lost for words, Matt. I can't even describe. When I saw that, and then the argument was two third round picks are dart throws. I'm like, absolutely not. But okay, they might be a dart throw, but you got a pretty narrow band on that dartboard, and it's pretty much all bullseye, and there's a few 20s out there. So in my book, frankly, Cordero Patterson isn't worth one 2020 third, maybe a 2024. Maybe.
Not even that. He's not worth nothing. You can cut
crazy.
This guy. You can cut that guy.
When you dissect the trade, essentially, when we say the 4.03, you trade the 4.03 for the 2.5s, okay? So let's call those a wash. So you're essentially trading two 2023s for Cordero Patterson. For a guy that might get you, what, 6 fantasy points a week if you're lucky. And if he's gonna have 1 or 2 big games, I'm sure of it. He'll get a couple touchdowns, but you have no idea when to start him. So this guy's essentially bench fodder for you, and you gave up 2 threes for him. To me, it's man, that
Blasphemy.
was shocking. That was
This
shocking.
is ridiculous. Yeah, I honestly don't even want to talk about it because it's more than just shocking. It's ridiculous. I mean, it's get the fuck out of here. I mean, this is a steamroller of a trade.
So this is a perfect example. We talk about camp hype. Okay, so a guy that I did not want to have any shares in one of my dynasty leagues was Devontae Parker. I wouldn't have drafted him. This was an orphan team that I picked up. I thought I traded a 3.1, pick 3.1 this year for Devontae Parker, and I was happy to get rid of him off my team. Would you have rather had Devontae Parker straight up for Cordero Patterson?
Yes, 100%.
I either got fleeced for Devontae Parker or somebody got fleeced for Cordero Patterson. That's all I'm going to say.
I don't know. So you tell me.
I think we all know the answer. We all know where I come out on that one, guys. But so to me, that was just the most ridiculous. What do you think about Rodney Anderson? He was my last pick in round 5.
I love him.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll pull up his profile here for just a second, but you can get me. I mean, honestly, you can get me on handcuffs. Okay. He handcuffs in my eyes. A lot of people do it wrong, I think. When you're handcuffing people, a lot of people will handcuff with the pass catching back. Okay. And to me, that's completely wrong. I feel like you need to handcuff with the first down back, and a lot of people will handcuff Gio with Mixon, or they'll handcuff like Rex Burkhead with Sonny Michel or something like that, or ideally like that. And I feel like that's completely wrong because third down backs are going to be third down backs. They can't slip into the first down back role unless the offense is ready to be passing on first down. Rodney Anderson, to me, 100% is the first down back type of replacement. His best comparable profiler is Rashad Penny, who is already proving to you that is exactly what you do with these guys. If Chris Carson goes down, you have Penny that's going to come in and can fill your first and second down back role and get 600 yards starting in week 7 if the guy goes down. Rodney Anderson, 6 foot 224. I mean, that's feature back size. It could be a situation where you spent a 5th round pick, and this is exactly why that Cordy Patterson trade is so garbage, because
I wouldn't say garbage. It's just cockamamie. It's just crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah, it's crazy. So 2 third-round picks, I mean, that could have got you some, but because you just shown as an example that you can draft a 5th-round guy in a Dynasty Rookie Draft who might usurp Joe Mixon if he gets injured, meaning he might get injured and Rodney Anderson does so good that he never comes back to the team. I mean, that's kind of what could happen with running backs in this day and age. I mean, look at Todd Gurley. Something we haven't talked about is I made such a hard play for Darrell Henderson because honestly, right now, he's their number 1 back. Like Todd Gurley might not even come back. You really just don't know. They're all saying, oh, he's not a feature back anymore. We're not going to use him like that. He's got some type of a knee issue. I don't know if you've ever heard of this basketball player, Brandon Roy, but he had the same knee issue and was out of the league early, and you never heard from him again. And he was a great player, a phenomenal player for the Portland Trailblazers. High draft pick, phenomenal college player, gets in the league, couple years, lights it up just like Gurley, knee problems, out of the league because you flat out can't play. Especially when you're talking knee problems against these 260-pound monsters that are tackling you on every play. And so now if your 4.40 becomes 4.8 and you just can't cut anymore, you might never play again. Like that is in Todd Gurley's range of outcomes. And so that's the same exact thing. Mixon could go down with some type of injury that takes him a year and a half to get back and never come back. And Rodney Anderson is all of a sudden the best, I mean, top 5 dynasty rookie startup player. I mean, honestly.
Well, I think it's worth pointing out that the reason that Rodney Anderson fell so far, both in the NFL draft and then obviously in a rookie draft, was because he has had, I believe it's 3 season-ending injuries in his college career. So this guy has suffered injuries, but I think that had he been healthy, he probably would have been the top running back in this year's draft class. So it is, to your point, it's going to take an injury. It's going to take an injury to Joe Mixon, but it's the running back position, so that's not completely unheard of. And Rodney Anderson could realistically be the number 1 back. Granted, the Cincinnati offense isn't exactly something to write home about, but anytime you can get a starting running back in the league, he's worth getting. And if I can get him at the, I think I was out the 504 draft spot, to me that was a no-brainer.
Yeah, that's a great, and I'd honestly been looking. Now, I knew about the injury history, and that's okay.
Yeah.
But when it gets to the NFL, your slate's wiped clean. I mean, if you're going to get an opportunity to lead the backfield, if you can play, he can play. I mean, so if an injury does happen, which again, I mean that at the 5th round, like you said, I mean, what the fuck are you doing? You're
absolutely
just chasing upside at that point. Another good pick was, and I hate to say it, was by Eagles fan 35. This wasn't my most surprising, but he drafted Tony Pollard, running back, and he did that, I believe, before.
I'm just looking here where Tony Pollard went.
Yeah, way before Rodney Anderson.
Tony Pollard went at the 4.2.
Yeah, 4.2. And so again, I mean, that's a great pick. I mean, Rod Smith, lit it up every time Ezekiel Elliott was out. And again, you just don't know. And with running backs, you get 5 years potentially. And if 3 of those 5 years or 2 of those 5 years are on injury, next man up. And with the 4th round, might as well go out and grab that. For me though, my most surprising pick of the entire draft, I kind of wanted to talk about 2 of them.
Give us two.
Well, not so much 2, but I mean, Daniel Jones going in the 2nd round when everybody has talked about him being so garbage, but I think it's actually a decent pick. I just don't like the team. I just don't feel like Al needed him. So he might have been able to fall a couple more picks, but Daniel Jones going 2.08 in a super flex. I mean, he was the highest drafted quarterback in the league outside of Kyler Murray. And because of draft capital alone, this guy's going to get, every chance to be the starter of this football team.
Not according to the Giants. Apparently Eli's got at least 2 years left. 2 good years
I know,
left.
but I mean, like when Eli is ready to go or when the team is ready to move, they're not moving on to anybody else but Daniel Jones. Like that's it. And it could be a situation. It could be a Russell Wilson situation. If Daniel Jones is playing well, they're not going to keep Eli in. I mean, if Eli's playing bad and they put him in for some reason and he plays well, they're not going to take him out.
Well, I think, what, in my opinion, this is like Al's one of the sharpest guys, I would say, that plays with us. And to me, this was a very sharp pick. Not because of need. He wasn't drafting for need because he has, granted, a few older quarterbacks, but he's got quite a few starting quarterbacks now. He drafted for value. And to your point, if Daniel Jones does end up as the starting quarterback, call it midway through the season, end of the season, and he is for the 2020 season, there's a lot of value there for future trade equity. And to me, that was a very smart pick. Now, the sexy pick, who went right after him, was Justice Hill. And we talked about Justice Hill a couple weeks back, and he's one of my favorite guys in this draft class. But from a pure resale value, we're talking stock trading value, Daniel Jones is going to have more value in 2 years than Justice Hill will. And frankly, Al might never start Daniel Jones, not once, for the entire time that he's on his team. But in a year or two, when he trades him, he might be getting a starting running back versus a Justice
he
Hill.
may get a starting running back or a first round pick. I mean, because that's how much worth that guy might be, especially in a weak draft class.
A starting quarterback in a super flex league is valuable. Because 24 of those guys got to start every single week on people's teams.
Well, it doesn't have to, but yeah, I mean, ideally, 24 of them are going to start, right? Yeah,
exactly.
No, I love so that's why I felt like that was one. The next one was Noah Fant. Noah Fant in a lot of mocks is a first round guy in a tight end premium, and he went 2.02, which I felt again was a decent surprising pick to have on your team in a tight end premium. The only downside to Noah Fant is you don't know what he's going to be yet, but he is an extremely athletic player, and on a team where Joe Flacco gets his tight ends involved. But he may not get them involved to the point where they're stellar, but maybe that's the tight end. Maybe that's not Flacco. Who knows what Noah Fant could be? To me, his best
maybe it'll be Drew Lock.
Well, maybe it'll be right. Maybe it'll be Drew Lock, who went at the same pick the very next round, but not to the same guy. So
Drew Lock went at 3.2.
Yeah,
to Mike. Big stick Nick.
And that was, I like Drew Lock. What was your big? Yeah, I do. I like Drew Lock. I do. I really do. I think he's the perfect quarterback for that Broncos system, to be honest. Because to me, he reminds me just of John Elway. To me, that's the kind of guy Elway wants. Hey, brother, run and gun. Just get out there and huck the ball around the field. Do what I used to do. Drew Lock has that potential, 100%. There's a couple quarterbacks in this draft that still haven't gone that I will be trying to pick up on the waivers. So suck it for that one. But what was your biggest blunder?
I'm not going to say any names. The biggest blunder of the draft.
You're not going to say any names.
Honestly, I was going through that. No, I mean, I've been looking at it again, and there wasn't really anything that screamed blunder to me. I mean, and then when you're looking at the fourth and the fifth rounds, it's kind of wide open at that point, anyways. I mean, I think that for me, I know that Mike had Leonard Fournette, but he went and he took Raquel Armstead. And man, when I look at Devin Singletary, Justice Hill was available, Damian Harris was available. When you're looking at the other available running backs, and to me, going back to do you handcuff your guy? I would not have drafted Raquel Armstead in that position. I would have drafted more of the upside guys, probably Devin Singletary, who, let's be honest, I mean, yes, I know that he's technically the number 4 running back in the Buffalo offense, but man, if for any of those evening games when the old men have already had their 3:30 dinners and they're in bed early, and you get a Sunday night game, Devin Singletary is going to be the starting running back on that team by week 6. And to me, that guy, in a heartbeat, I would have taken Singletary over Armstead. So that was one that kind of stood out to me, as it didn't really make much sense at the time. I mean, that was a pure handcuff play. And I understand why he did it. I mean, I had Leonard Fournette, who I actually traded away in my other league. And I drafted Armstead as well. And that was something that I regretted. But I got Armstead in the 3rd round in that one. So
that's kind of funny, because my blunder is a very similar situation where the handcuff was drafted. The guy that I can understand why he was drafted, but the guy who drafted him didn't even have Dalvin Cook. Alexander Madison. Yeah. So Alexander Madison, 5'11", 221. So he has size, but his 40 is 4.67. Okay. Which was 27th percentile. and his agility score is 11.42, only 47th, for less than half. Best comparable is Tyler Varga. Who the fuck's that guy?
I don't even know who that is. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Third round, though. I mean, third round. And this was early third round that he went off. So the guys that came after him, Dexter Williams, Cahill Waring.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Who?
Jay
Who's that?
Stern. That was the guy you fucking sniped me.
Cahill Waring. Yeah, yeah, that's right, him.
God. Jay Sternberger and Deontay Johnson, Josh Oliver all went after. Even Terry McLaurin went after. And then after that, there's kind of, it's more upside than anything else. No real sure spots there. But Alexander Madison, I mean, no, that's what I'm saying. Deontay Johnson's a great pick in that round, considering Juju had so much success, and so it's just it bottled my mind. It put a note in a bottle and then put it in my mind, and the sea of my mind will wash it away until somebody finds it and then drafts Alexander Madison early in the third round. Stupid pick, and you didn't even have Dalvin Cook. So it's like, what are you doing?
Well,
You're just drafting my
though.
I do.
You do though. So that's just a troll. That was a pure troll against you. You know that.
Yeah,
Don't
I
even
know.
kid yourself.
He wants to dangle him in front of my eyes if Dalvin Cook gets injured, and that's fine. Maybe.
Absolutely.
Maybe or he wants to come, and he's the one that reached out to me to maybe look into potential trade partner for Dalvin Cook. So maybe he's setting himself up, and that's okay.
Yep.
That's okay. But that was my blunder. What about dark horse or sleeper pick of the draft? To kind of, we're probably should wrap this up here pretty soon.
Yep,
I'll let you kind of have your last word, but dark horse.
I wouldn't necessarily say dark horse, but when we're talking value pick, this is just a pure value pick. Our boy Al, who I keep coming back to because I think Al had a great draft. He got Malcolm Brown at the 5.8, who, everybody's saying that Darrell Henderson, who went at 111, by the way, in our draft, that Darrell Henderson is going to be the lock and loaded handcuff to Todd Gurley. I'm not entirely convinced of that. I mean, it's probably likely, but when Detroit went out and tried to acquire Malcolm Brown, the Rams matched that offer sheet and they kept him on their team for a reason. So do we see it as a clean handcuff, or is it going to be more of a mixed backfield? I don't know. Give me that opportunity. At the 5.8, Malcolm Brown, man, steal of the draft.
Yeah, and they tendered him in the second round. And
yeah,
so
exactly. Yeah.
Realistically, they're saying, hey, he is better than anybody who we could have drafted at our pick in the second round.
Absolutely.
And then I believe they went up and they drafted Henderson in the third round. Was that correct?
I believe it's the third round. Yeah.
Yeah. So even then they kind of mixed around with capital. So they're doubly assuring their Todd Gurley pitfall. And that's exactly what I think the entire story this whole offseason will end up being is Todd Gurley, and that's great. Hopefully you can sell him if you got him, because that's the play. And we talked about that on last podcast. So my dark horse pick is my pick because I am so great. Okay, my pick at 4.1. 4.1. Go ahead. Tell me who it is, Shane.
It was your boy Terry McLaurin.
Yes, it was at 4.1. Now, who do you think will be Haskins' number one favorite, most trusted target in his very first year?
Honestly, healthy, I pray that it's Jordan Reed. Realistically, probably Terry McLaurin.
Terry McLaurin. Okay. And just out of college, they were just playing with each other last week. They went through year of college at least. I forget how long they were there together, but that connection is already built. And in the fourth round, I got potentially a starting slotty receiver on an offense where hey, Dwayne, what kind of offense you want to run? Well, here's the thing. My guy Terry right here, he can do all this stuff. And then you guys just tell me who you're going to put on the outsides. And I'll hit Terry all day. And then if somebody else gets open, we're fine. And they're like, well, Mr. Haskins, we've already proven that Doxson can't get open or do anything on the outside. And Paul Richardson's under 180 pounds and injured all the time. And, oh, well, my guy Terry right here, I don't know if you heard about him, but he's actually pretty good. And I've been feeding him the ball all the time. So why don't we just go with that and then we'll figure it out. And that's how it's going to go. And I'm very confident in that. And I will put my stake on his name. But again, I don't love players, or never mind. I'm not going to say that. That's a ripoff. I just like his ADP 4.01. Give me all the Terry McLaurin.
I love it, man. I'm cool with that.
All right, brother. We should probably end this. What is your last thing? You have something to kind of go over on the end. You know, I'm not rushing you off. So,
no, man.
Anything else? What do you got? Just to get us on the outs here.
Listen, guys, the more leagues you can join, the more different types of leagues you can join. Go out and do it. I know it's a little bit scary if you haven't taken the Dynasty Descent yet. It can be a little bit intimidating, but man, like, these rookie drafts are fun. And you know what? If you're in a redraft league, it's going to make you a better player because you're going to know who the hell these rookies are when you're going in. And you know, we talked about an auction league that I'm in with one of my other leagues. I'm going to know who I'm going to spend $1 or $2 on at the end of my draft to go get these bench players, and that's how you're going to win your league. So do it. Go out and go into a dynasty league now.
Right now. All right, everybody. This is the Flex Network. We hope you enjoyed. Next week, we're going to be analyzing our Dynasty Startup Draft. Now, by the rate of the times that are taken for this pick, we may only get to the third round by next week, but we're definitely going after it and giving a try. Thank you, guys. Shane, how can everybody get a hold of you?
Yeah, if you want to get a hold of me on Twitter, it's at Sealy_Shane.
At Sealy_Shane. I believe I am Flex Network 1 or something like that, but that's okay because you're going to see me next week. For now and for later, we'll see you guys.
Flex Network. This is the Flex Network. Flex on them. Flex on everybody. This right here is the Flex Network. Yeah. Flex on them. Flex.